Hello and welcome to our Resilience Matters session today. As you may see, Kathy and I are together. We have no guests this time. And the reason because of that is that we thought we've had so many brilliant guests over the last month. And we thought, well, hang on, every single topic that we discussed, we wanted to talk about more, didn't we, Kathy?
Totally. We had some great guests. It's lovely.
Yeah, so we thought what we do rather than bringing on another guest is to actually take a moment to stop and appreciate some of the pearls of wisdom that we actually got from those sessions and to maybe explore some of the areas in a little bit more depth with an opportunity to give you guys a little bit more of a sense of, well, what can you do about that? How can you build your resilience and mental strength, bearing in mind some of the challenges and things that we talked about over the last month or so. So that's our plan for this session. And if I take us right back to our first session with Elizabeth, which was an absolutely wonderful session, one of the things that struck me about that was we started talking about valuing ourselves and caring, and not just caring for ourselves, which is one of the important habits that we have at I Have Got This, but care in a sort of a societal perspective. And why don't we value care more? Why don't we see it as being more important? You know, we think about the jobs that are out there that get high paid jobs and the jobs that perhaps aren't paid so well. And that's all about care, isn't it? And it sort of made us stop and think about, you know, why don't we see care as being important?
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think there's a society thing, you know, and actually doing the right thing and that ethical side as well. But there's also that personal side, you know, that Elizabeth talked about, you know, and setting those healthy boundaries. And being a people pleaser, I know it's quite difficult to set those healthy boundaries, you know. And I think when I was part-time, I would constantly do stuff outside of my hours, and the more that you do, the more it's expected. And so then boundaries as well, you know, is so important, I think, to looking after yourself, and even that external validation piece, you know, on how you look after and value and care for yourself. So, you know,
yeah. Go on.
So no, I was just interested, you know, in your take about, you know, valuing yourself and caring for yourself.
I think, you know, there's a reason why when people do our diagnostic, which you can do on the website, there's a reason why I value and care for myself quite often comes out as one of the lowest scores. And I think it is because it's one of those things we all know it's a good thing to do. We do, you know, I think there are very few people who would argue with us if we went, you know, value and care for yourself and go, no, there's no point in doing that. So we all know that it's something we should do, but it's not necessarily something that we maintain over a period of time. We can have a good week and we can go, okay, do you know what? This week I have put in a little bit of self-care. I've done that. But then you hit a week when there's a lot going on, when you're stressed, when you're all over the place, and all of a sudden that's the bit that drops. That's the bit, oddly enough, where we go, I haven't got time for that. And you know, one of the things I always say about when people say they haven't got time for something is they have got the time, they're just choosing not to spend that time on that particular thing.
Totally. We've all got the same amount of time, haven't we? You know?
Exactly. But we choose in those moments to not spend the time that's, you know, that we've got on looking after ourselves. And you know, I think for me, one of the things is trying to build it into those habits that we already have in our daily life, sort of anchoring it in there. And one of the things that I've tried, which is currently successful, I'm crossing the fingers to say, is actually meditation is a really important thing for me, sort of like getting that mindful state, meditating, feeling sort of emotionally balanced. And so the two things I do in the morning, I get up, feed the cat, I have to get this in the right order, feed the cat first, make a cup of tea is the second thing. So get up, make a cup of tea, and I've now turned it into the Holy Trinity of, and then I meditate. So before I look at my phone, before I do anything that takes my head into a space where I'm like, oh, must do this, must do that, feed the cat, cup of tea, meditate. And integrating into those things that I do every day.
Yeah, totally. And just having, like you say, those habits. I read something the other day, actually, the importance of taking a break and how it can make us more productive. It's so easy to go, oh, I've got my next thing on my list, I've got to go. But actually, they say it only takes 30 seconds of putting yourself back and breathing, noticing your breathing, and you are so much more productive. So, I totally get that. And, I found, I love meditating, finding that time to do it. But I think you're right. I think it's building into the habit. So I'm lucky enough to have a couple of dogs. So I am forced to go for a walk. And the one thing I do is not take my phone. I have my phone, I have it on silent, because otherwise I'm always on. And I know people who take digital detoxes, they call it, where they, will ignore all of their digital devices for a period of time. But for me, just having that time out, without being present and not looking around is enough. And so it doesn't have to be something big. Values, does it?
No.
And like you say, it's building into them habits. But
absolutely, pick something small. Doesn't, as Kathy says, doesn't have to be sort of completely like taking your day up in any way. It can just be something small, but actually then it can be life-changing if you can integrate it into everyday practice, something that you just go, yeah, that's what I do. When it becomes, yes, that's what I do, then that's a habit. That's something that you are really doing. So yeah, absolutely, when it comes to caring for yourself, it's such an important thing, valuing the care that we give other people, making that time for it. But yeah, pick something small and build it in every day. I think that makes a big difference.
Yeah, totally.
When we had our second session, Chris came along, and it was a wonderful conversation full of all sorts of different nuggets, wasn't it? And one of the things he talked about was about being your own best friend, which I think we had the time to explore on the day. But then he threw something in that really struck me, and he talked about finding things that bring you joy, which is such a lovely thing. So what do you think about finding things that bring you joy?
And do you know what I loved about Chris? The fact that he consciously said, every day I do something that brings me joy. Every day. And I thought, good for you. And we're all so different. This is what makes life colourful, right? We are all so different, and how we get joy from things. And some of it is just noticing. And I don't think it has to be something big, as long as you take time to notice that. I mean, I'm quite fortunate that I live by the coast. And so I always love water, love being by the sea. Pisces, maybe that's what it is, I don't know. But, just noticing, it could just be another dog walk, but actually noticing those things that bring me joy. And I tell you something else that I've done since lockdown. It's I found myself in lockdown becoming a single mum of 4. And I started off this habit of buying myself flowers. So when I do my shopping, I'd be right, I want to buy myself some flowers, well done you. And it's a habit that I still do, and it brings me joy because no matter how the house is looking, I've always got my beautiful lilies there, making the house smell lovely. But it also reminds me, a bit of gratitude for myself as well. So it brings me joy then being in my house, but also for me, it's a bit of a self-gratitude buying myself flowers. Me proud of what I do and what I've done, and a bit of a well done you. I mean,
and are you still doing the thing where you give them to the kids?
Yes.
Go on, tell everybody listening.
No, and it's what I started doing. I can't believe we brought this up, actually.
I just love it. I've told so many people this story.
Sometimes I come in with my shopping and I'll say to one of my children, Louis, can you just hold these flowers for me? And he'll hold them on. I go, oh, are they for me? Oh, thank you so much. I make him give them back to me, and I pretend that I hadn't brought them and given them to myself. But yeah, it's a little joke that goes on in our household that I make somebody hold them and then pass them to me, and
that brings you extra joy.
extra joy. Yeah, even it's just seeing their faces pass it to me with, shock and, it's quite funny. But yeah, these little things, right? I mean, what about you?
I think it always strikes me when we think about things like this. It's if we explore happiness and we explore joy and why they're different, it's a bit like, in my head, it's like extrinsic versus intrinsic motivation. You've got the stuff that you imagine is going to bring you joy, but actually it's quite sort of ephemeral, it's not long lasting, and then you've got the stuff that stays with you. And if I compare a bar of chocolate to the most beautiful blossom that's currently out in the roads around me at the moment, it's just like, a bar of chocolate, to be honest, I'm going to meet, the thought of a bar of chocolate, a little bit of happiness there. Maybe like the first bite of the bar of chocolate, really enjoying that. After that, it's kind of me, and it's gone, and I never look back and go, oh, do you remember that bar of chocolate? Oh my, that just doesn't happen, because it's like extrinsic motivation. It's kind of, it's there, then it's gone. But honestly, the blossom, as I've used the word blossom, I've got that picture in my head. It's like a snowstorm of pink petals out in the road, and every year, I think about it, and then I'm like, oh, here it comes, and there it is, and I make people walk different ways to go to the pub just so we can walk under the blossom. And that's joy to me. That's the thing that will absolutely stay with you every day, stay with you for life, certainly living around here. And then, if I think about gratitude, and that I try and do the 3 things every night, 3 things I'm grateful for. I've never stuck a chocolate bar in there, ever. It's never been thank you for that. But I think the blossom appears on a regular basis this time of year, because it is just stunning. And that, to me, is therefore your difference between the things that might make you happy, but the long-lasting, heartfelt things that bring you joy. If it's going to appear on your gratitude list, then that's the thing that really matters.
Yeah, and I'm a firm believer of the whole gratitude list, and I don't even think it's the writing down. It is taking that moment to linger and consider and reflect on all the things that you are grateful for in your life, so you can take that time to appreciate it. And and even smiling, smiling brings us joy. Smile more. It's a small thing, but it generally can boost you there and bring you joy.
And it's infectious, wonderful thing like that. Actually, you smile, other people smile. It's the best gift you can give somebody else. It's just that smile that then lifts them too and gets passed around.
And it's funny you should say that. I remember being at primary school, and our teacher said, "What can you do to somebody else to make them happy that doesn't cost you anything?" And being a kid, we were like, oh, find a lollipop, stick on the floor and give it to them, and all these places. And it was actually a smile. And I remember even now, and that was at primary school, them saying, smile costs you nothing, but can make a difference to somebody's day. And it's true.
That is so lovely. Is it something from childhood that stays with you?
Yeah, a smile costs you nothing, but it is a mood booster as well. Totally. Yeah.
So we had Michaela with us, and again, another great discussion. Here's somebody who's gone through a lot, who was very open with us about challenges and how she's built that mental strength in herself. And she was talking about her inner critic and the importance of vulnerability, rather than kind of like defensiveness in the face of that, that inner critic. We're all human, we all make mistakes, but it's all about how we handle it, isn't it?
Yeah, totally. And I got a lot of admiration, for being able to be open like that. It's very easy to be harsh on yourself, but to approach it, with a different mindset. And what I particularly loved is that she named it, didn't she? She had a name for her inner critic, and I thought I am going to name mine actually, because it's a nice way to distance yourself from your thoughts. We always have this inner voice, this chatterbox as they refer to it, and it can really hold us back if we listen to it. you know, it can become a limiting belief and just really sabotage us. And certainly even in my coaching, you know, we can be really harsh on ourselves. You know, you wouldn't talk to a best friend like it. Yeah, we can talk to ourselves like it and beat ourselves up. And I really love the fact that, you know, that vulnerability she could see when she was uncomfortable, when she didn't let. Was it I want to say Marjorie, but it wasn't. It was
mine was Margaret. Michaela's was Brenda.
So she didn't listen to Brenda, but she recognised it and allowed herself to be vulnerable and going, oh, this feels uncomfortable. But, you know, I'm not going to listen to everything else.
Yeah. I think it's interesting from a psychology perspective, and the reason I go down some of these routes is at the moment I'm studying counselling and psychology, so of course I've got to shove a bit of the theory in there. And you know, Freud over 200 years ago was talking about, we have the id, which is like the childlike part, we have the superego, which is that judgy bit, and then the ego is the bit that's supposed to balance the two out. So he was saying, you know, 200 years ago, we've got this inner critic that's going to be there putting all these messages across. And actually it's the ego that's supposed to be like the adult that tries to balance it, and to not make those judgments and those criticisms so harsh that actually we don't do anything, that we sort of like believe our own internal press, as it were. But I think sort of as we go into nowadays, that actually there's, you know, I don't know how Freud would feel about vulnerability, but there is something here about just being human. Let's not superego or edit or anything else. It's like, actually, can we learn to be human beings, to go, it's okay to make mistakes. Actually, going back to primary school, you know, my headmaster at primary school wrote in all our autograph books, he wrote, learn by doing. Which is, and quite frankly, he did. Mr. Bentley, he's not around anymore, but he was, you know, he was a very active teacher. But, you know, this whole idea about learning by doing has to be in the context of, and it's okay if you make a mistake. Because if you think it's not okay to make a mistake, it's not okay to fail, then you aren't going to keep doing that. You aren't going to keep stretching yourself, stepping out of your comfort zone. And you know, one of the things I often say is, if people aren't making mistakes, then maybe they're not pushing themselves enough. But when you do push yourself, when you do make a mistake, that's okay. That's a really positive sign that says, you know what, you're stretching, you're challenging, you're not just going, I'm enough. You're going, I could do more, I can be more. And when you do that, sometimes it doesn't work the way you want it to.
No. But that's okay. It goes back to, it's that reframing, isn't it? That, you know, if you can treat everything as a lesson learned, you know, and everything as a learning opportunity, that can make a huge difference, you know, to think, oh, what have I learned today rather than what went wrong? You know, actually, what did I learn? What would I do differently? You know, you always say the Edison light bulb. You know, the 100, you know, was it failure 100 times, or was it 100 steps?
It was 1,000. He was
like
1,000
step process, you know, to create it. And it is just reframing, going, okay, that didn't work. What else? Or I might have done something differently, but it's just, you know, that's what life's about, learning, you know, by doing. And like you say, if you're too afraid to try new things, that just holds you back, you know, with what life has to offer, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Step up there, step out. I don't know the exact numbers. Somebody might want to Google this at some point in the future. But actually, it wasn't just light bulbs. I think Edison was known to have more patents than anybody else in history. And a patent is just, I think this could be a good idea. But he didn't invent that much, but he had a lot of patents because he wanted to try stuff out. So he, you know, I would suggest he's quite resilient, or he was quite resilient in you know, in the way he was. And when Patricia was on with us, we had again a great conversation about culture and leaders. But there was you started this conversation. There was a conversation towards the end, which we could fill a whole session exploring, about, you know, are we born with resilience, or actually do we develop resilience over time? So obviously you and I both had time to think about that since. So where did your head go?
Luckily, because it started with, do you pick up a child? Does that build their resilience? And it's like, whoa, but yeah, and there's a lot of research out there, right? But I think it's fair to say that we're all born with this innate capacity of resilience, but that does change over time. You think, if you look at your children learning to walk, they fall over, they keep going, and they're curious about the world. But if you think about what our function of our brain is, it's to keep us safe. And it might go, oh no, don't do that, it won't keep you safe, and you might stick to the status quo. But I think, so things can stop us, but I think we can everybody can develop resilience without a doubt. But I think the more you experience joy that we talked about, pain, the more we develop that inner strength and that resilience. So I think if you hide away from the world and you never develop this muscle, and it is like a muscle, it's like courage. We don't develop it, but the more we do it, and we might get knocked down and we get up again, the less afraid we are of doing that. So I think, yes, we are born with it. Yes, it can change on life experience, but we can always develop it, would be my view. I mean, where's your head with it?
Yeah, I think there is something about, we start off with the ability to be resilient, absolutely. As if we assume we're born with everything we need as human beings, we've got that ability to do it, and then our experiences allow us to develop it and stretch it and to build on our understanding of what resilience is. But I think, and bringing my experiences working in the cancer support field, I think one of the things is sometimes we forget how resilient we are. And one of the most powerful exercises that we do when I've done workshops with people who are coming through a cancer treatment and they're thinking about what next, and perhaps their confidence being a bit knocked, they might be struggling a little bit thinking about what life may hold for them, is one of the things to do is to get them to sit down and tell a complete stranger their story and what they've been through, and just watch the listener as they take in everything that person who's talking has been through. And then when they repeat it back, the person with the story just hears a whole new level of resilience about themselves and a whole new set of values about themselves, because it's somebody else just reminding them all the things they've been through and what they have done to get through that. And I think, sometimes we don't stop and look enough and go, I was really good when I did that, and wow, that was good. And we don't give ourselves the credit for the things that we've gone through. And it's not about spending all your time in the past, because we want people to be focusing on the now and opportunities, but it is about taking past experiences and giving ourselves the credit for what we've been through, for the skills that we've used, for the way that we've kept going. And everybody will have unique and different ways of doing it, and just going, yes, this is me, this is a part of me, be proud of that. This is what I'm capable of. You don't always know what you're capable of until you're put in a challenging situation. Totally. And it's amazing what people can do, but we forget it. We go through something like cancer and you forget all the resources you had. And take a moment to stop and remind yourself, I'm blooming amazing.
Yeah, totally. And we have that on one of our nudges on some of our workshops, don't we? But for that exact reason. And if you think about coaching, that's in effect, it's just holding up the mirror. It's holding up the mirror. And what amazes me with coaching, which is why I love it so much, some people come with a problem, they feel completely stuck, and they're like, I don't know what to do. And the thing is, with coaching, you don't give advice. It all comes from them. And when you can systematically kind of work through and unpick that with them, they come up with solutions. But it was there all the time.
Yeah.
It was, it's there all the time. We are resourceful. But sometimes, we get blockers and things get in the way. and we just need to be able to just see that, and like you say, just looking back and realizing when you can be resilient. I mean, I've got friends that do things I think, oh my life, how do you do that? But you know, you're put in a situation and people do find a way. And yeah, and you know, and I think, you know, what you were saying as well, I think what a theme with all of the people we spoke to really was about is about this awareness, isn't it? This awareness, like you say, looking back and seeing the great things you've done, whether it's that taking time to pause and reflect and notice what gives you joy, what you're grateful of, reflecting on, you know, what we were talking about, you know, with Michaela as well, you know, reflecting on, actually, I am vulnerable, but it's okay. And actually, I'm noticing this chatterbox coming up, but that's all right. I'm going to put that to one side. It's just my super brain trying to keep me safe. And, you know, and it is just creating that self-awareness that coaching can help with. But, you know, I love the journaling idea, and, you know, that served me really well over the years, is just to notice, you know, journal how you're thinking, how you're feeling, giving yourself some space and coming back to it. And you do a bit of a reality check on it and you're thinking, oh, wow, you know, so there's that reflective practice of noticing what gives you joy, gratefulness, but, you know, also to recognize how your thought patterns are, and, you know, and allowing yourself to be vulnerable, that we spoke about before.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think another general theme that I found with all of our speakers, and I say all of which were fascinating and brought great insight, and, you know, makes us talk, which is great, you know, about how do you think, you know, that fits in with mindset. But what struck me is you always have a choice. If, you know, when you look at Elizabeth, she was saying, okay, she was made unemployed, but she started as a purpose-driven business to help other people. If you Chris was saying, look, you know, you can choose to stand in the storm, or you can get your umbrella out and look at what you can control. And even Michaela, you know, was saying, you know, with her health issues, she decided, right, it's going to give me the courage to be my own boss, you know. And often change, you know, it's scary, but it can be the catalyst to do something amazing. And we all have a choice, you know, whether we listen to that chatterbox, that input, you know, in a voice that can sabotage us, or those things that might make us feel like imposters. We can choose to just ignore it. And but what did occur to me listening to all their stories, we always have a choice. And I think that's a bit of a superpower, you know, once you realize you can change the way you think and how you view a situation, you know, and actually can control your mindset. I really feel that's a superpower.
Oh, it's such an empowering thing, isn't it? To go, okay, it's tough, but I can still choose no matter what.
Yeah, totally. And so, you know, I'd like to thank our guests this month. It's been
so would I.
It's been really insightful, and as I say, every time we could have gone down a road of talking about so many different elements of what they spoke about. But I think what you've highlighted, you know, is some really great things that people can reflect on and use themselves. But if anybody in our network is listening to this on LinkedIn, if they'd like to be a guest, we hold it every Wednesday. And we'd love to hear from you. You can get in touch with us on our website at www.ihavegotthis.co.uk. And also through our website, we have developed a free toolkit, which is all around 101 ways to build your mental strength. So we're particularly proud of it. So please do go in, take a look and download it, because there's something for everybody. But but I really would like to thank our guests and yourself, Alison, for all of your insight.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing what comes up in the next month.
Exactly. Right, take care.
Bye.